Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Rewarding Employees Without Breaking the Bank. I'm Kevin Aguanno, and I'm excited to be your presenter for the day. I've authored a book on this topic called 101 Ways to Reward Team Members for $20 or Less. This has been an interesting topic for me over the years. I've written a lot of books, and some of them have been on topics around employee rewards and recognition, driving better performance, rewards program design for managers and HR professionals. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart. So today, what I'd like to talk about specifically are a few key topics around the subject of rewards, and this applies both to managers and also to project managers, people who may own profiles of individuals and are looking at the performance of a broader organization, or project managers who are looking at team members who might be temporarily assigned to them within the scope of some initiative and are looking at ways of driving better team performance at a smaller level. So specifically today, we're going to talk about the theory of rewards. Why do we reward in the first place? What are we hoping to get out of this? What are the benefits that we're looking for? We're also going to look at some of the controversies that are surrounding rewarding. Not everybody believes rewarding is appropriate or is often done poorly. So we're going to talk about that. What are some of the controversies and resistance to rewarding that we'll have to face? We'll look at 4 tips on how to choose the right reward so we know that we are being effective with our reward dollars. We're going to talk about, once we've chosen the right reward, how do we deliver it effectively so that we get the most benefits out of the reward, both benefits in reinforcing or changing the behavior of an individual, but also spin-off benefits on the larger organization as a whole. And we're going to look at how team rewards and individual rewards promote different behaviors and how you need to design a rewards program that has a mix of rewards to drive different types of teaming or competitive behaviors. And lastly, we're going to look at 8 categories of inexpensive, low cost, or even no cost rewards that you can use for your staff and employees. And lastly, we'll talk about where to find some additional information on this. So let's start at the beginning. Why reward at all? Why do we care about rewards? And there's some interesting research and pronouncements and things that have happened over the years that illustrate this point. The Globe and Mail, quite a few years ago now, back in 2004, had an interesting article in which they said workplace stress and depression are exacting a heavy toll, particularly among conscientious employees in their prime working years. So stress and depression are an issue. Workplace mental health is an issue that rewards may be able to help with, to make sure that we're promoting the right behaviors that should be reducing stress and also to foster the mental health. In fact, mental health is a recurring theme in rewards. The Global Business and Economic Roundtable on Addiction and Mental Health. This is a bunch of senior leaders around the world who get together to analyze workplace problems and make pronouncements. This particular time did a study, and the cost estimated the cost of workplace stress and depression to exceed $33 billion just in lost production. And in addition, in the top 10 sources of workplace stress, 3 of the top 10 sources, two of the top 3 are addressed through rewards programs: feeling unappreciated and the feeling of not contributing. So clearly, rewards programs have a significant impact on our business and in reducing workplace stress. So what are the benefits of rewarding? For the giver, the one giving the reward, there's a number of benefits. It encourages positive changes in behaviors and attitudes, not just in the person who's received the reward, but also in other employees who may observe the person getting rewarded for that particular behavior. So it encourages, reinforces this positive behavioral change and may inspire others to mimic that behavior. Obviously, it reduces workplace stress. We've addressed that already. And it improves morale. People who are rewarded tend to feel better and work better and be more productive. So that's better for the employer, the giver of the reward. It also reduces turnover as a result of better morale and improved productivity, as I hinted at before. And all of this leads to improved profits for the organization as a whole. So obviously there's benefits in rewarding for the giver of the reward, but what about the recipient of the reward? Obviously they get the reward itself. It recognizes their particularly unusual changes in behavior, unusual accomplishments. You don't reward for the day-to-day regular business as usual stuff. You reward because something has changed or the person's doing something above and beyond. So you're encouraging that growth. Also, the receiver now feels more recognized and accepted by the broader group of peers and managers. They feel like they are now, their contributions have been acknowledged and honored. It gives them a sense of job security. If you just received an award for excellence, you're not likely to be next on the chopping block. And particularly in tough economic times, that may be a particularly good benefit just all by itself. And a feeling of personal accomplishment, that the person feels that they've grown, that they've improved, that they've done something right. It helps people with poor self-esteem. They feel like they matter, they make a difference. And that gives them a feeling of overall satisfaction. So there's a lot of benefits, not only for the receiver of the reward, but also for the giver of the reward. A lot of good reasons for it. However, there's a lot of controversy surrounding rewarding, right? There's a lot of people debating whether rewarding is appropriate, whether it's done properly. There's a lot of thought on this. Particularly, some people don't think we should reward at all. They think just the concept of rewarding is wrong. We should try to avoid rewarding. They talk about employment as a contract. They're saying, I'm paying you a certain salary or a certain wage to perform your work. And if you perform that work well, that's what I'm expecting. So why should I reward you for doing what I'm paying you to do in the first place? So some people see that employment as a contract and that rewarding is redundant. These are typically the people who don't tip in restaurants. There's also the challenges of rewarding in unionized environments. This can be very, very troubling in some circumstances because unions don't want individuals to be necessarily distinguished from others. If some employees are rewarded for working harder or working better or going above and beyond, then that may put pressure on the other unionized employees to do the same. And unions don't like unnecessary pressures on their members due to the behavior of one individual, perhaps. So unions typically are a little bit shy or leery of rewards. Some rewards programs are fine in unionized environments if they benefit the workers overall, such as number of work-free days, the number of injury-free or accident-free days in a manufacturing plant. Those are things that unions typically support. But when you're getting into productivity changes, then that's where the unions start to get a little bit concerned. So we need to be very cautious about how do we reward in unionized environments. Also, the concept that you might have missed someone on a team. You may give out a reward for a team that's done very well and hit all the main team members, but maybe there were people earlier on in the process who joined the team, did some great fundamental foundational work, but then left the team to move on to something else partway through the project. At the end, you now reward the team who were there for the big ribbon cutting ceremony, but those earlier team members who may have left the group somewhere along the way sometimes get forgotten, and that can be troublesome for those individuals who don't feel like their own contributions have been acknowledged or recognized. That's something that happened to me one time in a particular project. I was a very key part of starting an initiative, getting it kicked off, working directly with all the stakeholders, getting it started. And then once it was started off in that right direction, even building the plan, once the teams, a new group of people got engaged and took over and just executed that plan, the plan worked out really well. Everything worked out in the end. They all got acknowledged for their contribution to this, but not me, because I had come and gone and was off, onto something else at that point. The project was a couple years long, so a couple years earlier I had contributed but wasn't recognized. So, if you miss someone on the team, they can feel hurt. So whether you should reward at all is a challenge. Another challenge or controversy is about the size of rewards. Like how big should it be? And here's where we get into some challenging scenarios. Specifically, what if the reward's too small? The person who's done the work may have felt that their sacrifices were enormous. They may have given up going to their children's Christmas concert. They may have missed a birthday party. They may have sacrificed things in their personal lives to help this initiative or this project or this organization succeed, and then they get a little thank you. I'll give you an example. There was a project that I was doing one time for my employer. I was trying to recover a troubled situation. I was brought in to fix a mess that somebody had made. And the cost to the organization was going to be incredible. The project itself, they were forecasting would cost $30 million. And this project was needed to secure a $1 billion contract with a client that had just been signed, but it needed this particular piece of work to be completed. And nobody was sure if it was even possible. If it was, they estimated around 30 million. I brought it in on time and brought it in well under. I brought it in for $12 million. So well under the $30 million. We saved the $1 billion contract. I mean, that was in jeopardy. At one point, we thought the contract would be canceled. We saved the contract, saved the $1 billion, did it for less than half the money they had estimated, and I got a T-shirt as a thank you for doing so well on this project. So for me, that reward was too small for my contribution. Not that it needs to necessarily cost a lot of money, but that the level of recognition, the level of reward did not match my personal sacrifices and my personal contributions. So in this particular case, it did not motivate me. It did not make me feel appreciated. It did not make me feel recognized properly by the group. All those items the benefits that we talked about on the prior slide. So if a reward is too small, you can miss out on the benefits that you were looking for. Similarly, if the reward is too big, if somebody is rewarded out of proportion to their efforts, so if somebody made a couple phone calls, took them 15 minutes and, achieved some great goal that the organization had been struggling with just on a fluke, these couple phone calls made everything work, and you give the person a very large reward, then it may cause two issues. One, the individual may feel that they're getting rewarded for hardly working at all, so they should not have to work so hard in the future. They're going to actually lower their level of productivity because they've been recognized for doing something that was just minimal. Secondly, their peers are going to get very jealous and bitter that person received such a large reward for such a minor contribution or a minor piece of effort. So we got to be cautious, and that may demotivate the peers and build in cynicism into the organization. So rewards that are too big can cause a problem. There's also challenges around misusing rewards. Rewards sometimes are done for the wrong reasons. If rewards are given too freely, like they're given out like candy, everybody gets a reward. Think about contribution certificates, or in schools, the teachers are giving out a whole bunch of rewards certificates to the class. Every month, there's the top student of the month, the most improved student of the month, the student with the greatest personality, the one with the nicest smile, the one with the best team spirit. They give out so many certificates. Everybody wins something, every few months. Then all of a sudden, those rewards aren't valued anymore. They're not seen as something special or out of the ordinary or something unusual. If the rewards are seen as, it happens every month, everybody gets their turn, everybody's going to get something eventually, then the value of them becomes minimized. So that can be a problem with misusing rewards. Sometimes there's inappropriate rewards that can cause challenges. If you give a reward that is risque, or which is not suitable to the individual, that could cause a problem. And I have a funny story about that. So one story I can give you is a reward where a woman who absolutely loved art. She had a bachelor's of fine art. She was working for a nonprofit organization. She loved art, particularly classical art. She had a poster up over her desk. She had little figurines, little statues, copies of some common artworks on her desk. In her spare time, she'd go to the art gallery. She did a master's degree studying the work of Donatello. She was really into classical art. This was her life. She appreciated it. She took her vacations, around museum exhibits, etc. Her manager went on a trip to Italy, and when he was touring, Florence, he actually went and saw the statue of David. Now, if you're not familiar, David is a statue of a naked man with say anatomically correct sculpturing. So he went and saw a statue of David, and at the gift shop he bought her a little marble sculpture, only about 6 inches tall, replica of the statue, because he knew she liked these things. And when he brought it back, he gave her the statue just as a little treat. He thought of her when he saw it, and he bought it for her as a gift. He came back from his trip. He bought gifts for a couple of his staff members, a couple of his employees, and he brought this to her. She was very, very grateful for this statue. She really appreciated the thought that went into it. However, you got to think about the organization and what happened as a whole. People were saying, why did she get one and not somebody else? Why did not everybody get a reward or a gift? That was part of the concern. Another one was, he was a 56-year-old married man giving a statue of a naked male to a woman who was 22 years old and single. That was also raised a few eyebrows because it looked like it was inappropriate. So we need to think about whether the reward itself is appropriate for the situation, the individual, etc. We got to worry about the visibility of these rewards. So let's talk about that a bit more. How are you sure that the reward suits the person? And I have 4 tips for how to do that, to make sure that you choose the right reward for the individual. First, you got to think about the giver, the person giving the reward. Will I be embarrassed giving this reward to this person? Will I be offended? So for example, there was a company that did some work expanding into the Russian market. So the company sent a bunch of staff members over to Moscow, and they were trying to open up operations in the Russian market, and they sent over these American people over there to do this work. They did a great job. They got the company up and running. They got some business going. The team that was there, the A team, the SWAT team that they sent in to go set up this branch of their company in Moscow, when they came back to New York, were rewarded for such an excellent job getting this company up and running. It had been decided, the Russian business partners had given them those fancy Russian fur hats, the ones with the flaps on the sides and they can tie up at the top. They gave them these really fancy Russian fur hats for the team members, sort of as a thank you gift for all the work that they'd done when they'd gone over to set up the Russian office. They'd been shipped back to the headquarters. When the team came back, there was a bit of a ceremony in front of the entire division up on stage, where the manager of this team was going to present the team members with these fur hats as a thank you for the work that they did in Russia. Sounds really nice, and these are valuable hats. They're not cheap. So it was a really nice gift from that perspective. However, the manager was a member of PETA, People for the Ethical Treatments of Animals, people against the fur industry overall. For the manager to give out these hats was hugely problematic. The manager felt seriously offended when they were asked to present these hats. And when the person is offended giving the gift or giving the reward, the people receiving the reward can sense that. It feels insincere, and it often shows. And that diminishes the whole benefit of having the reward at all, because people feel it's not sincere, it's not heartfelt, and it doesn't give the reinforcing behavior, the reinforcements that one would expect. So we have to think about the giver of the reward. Is the reward okay to the giver? Then you got to think about the recipient of the reward. Will that person value it in the first place, or will they be offended? Will they value it? So for example, one company gave out bottles of really nice wine to all of their staff at the end of the year as a thank you gift. They all got a really expensive bottle of wine. Well, that's great, except for the couple people on the staff who may be recovering alcoholics. And so you may give them a bottle of wine, but that may actually challenge them. They don't value that as a reward. They see that as a negative, as a challenge that now they have to overcome. So will they value it, or will they be offended by the reward itself? What about if the person receiving the fur hat was a member of PETA, and then were really offended by receiving something that was fur that goes against their personal beliefs? There may be religious beliefs or other personal beliefs that may be triggered by certain kinds of rewards. So we have to think about the recipient as well. Is it something that they will want? Then we have to think about the organization as a whole. Will this gift, even though it's suitable to the giver and the recipient, will this hurt the organization's image? Does this meet their standards or their policies? Does it go against any official messages? Let me give you another real example. So there was a consumer electronics company who will be unnamed, and their employees, as a gift, were all given iPods. They were very, very thrilled, but the organization wasn't Apple. It was one of Apple's competitors was giving its employees Apple products as a reward. It was highly valued by the employees. The managers giving them thought they were great gifts, but it would hurt the image of the organization overall if this message got out to the public that it isn't even giving out its own products, it's giving out a competitor's products because its own products weren't valued by its employees. So you got to think about, will this hurt the organization's image if it gets out? And even if it's suitable to the giver and the recipient and the organization, one must consider the community, society as a whole. Is it legal? Is it acceptable? Will society support this? So we have to consider the norms in the community and society, and consider, will this look bad on the company if it gets out visibly as well? So we have to look at all of these different factors to determine if the reward is even suitable for the person. But there's actually 4 steps for choosing the right rewards. And the first one is making sure that the reward suits the person. And as I said, that's the recipient, the giver, the organization, and society as a whole. But there's 3 other things we must consider other than just, is the reward appropriate for the person? We also have to consider, does the reward suit the level of accomplishment? We want to tie the reward to the accomplishment somehow, right? So does it suit the accomplishment? If the person perhaps successfully increased their sales level, and you want to give them some kind of bonus, is the bonus suitable to that level of accomplishment? Is it an extra commission? Is the reward too big or too small? We must consider those factors to make sure that the reward is suitable for the accomplishment itself. Next, somehow we want to tie the reward to the accomplishment so they know that it's what they're being rewarded for. So if somebody increased their sales level and you drop off a flower on their desk one day, just in a little vase, a little rosebud in a vase, they're not sure what that's for. This is, they got a reward. Or you drop off a pair of tickets to a Broadway show. They see that they got some kind of reward or bonus or something, but if it's not tied specifically to the accomplishment, they don't know why they got that reward, then they don't know which behavior to continue reproducing that got them the reward. They're not sure what to do or not do, or change or not change to get future rewards as well. So not only must the reward suit the person and be appropriate to the accomplishment, somehow we got to tie it to the accomplishment, maybe in the presentation of the reward, or putting a card with it to say what the reward is for, something that so the person knows which behaviors need to continue meeting expectations. And lastly, the reward must be given in a timely fashion. So if I've changed my behavior, say for example, I am now filing my policy claims on time, and I receive a reward 6 or 8 months later after I've made that change, even if I know that's what the reward is for, I may have abandoned those behaviors in the interim because I didn't know if it was valued by the business or not. So if I've gone out of my way, above and beyond, to change my behaviors, to learn, to take courses, to whatever I need to do to improve my skills so that I can, file claims faster, process things faster, that may have been really good for a month or 2, but if I'm not getting recognized soon after the change, if that change is not acknowledged, then I may say, well, they don't really care. They're not valuing all the extra work I'm doing, so I'm just going to stop doing it. Now, so my performance actually decreases back to the original or maybe even a lower level. 6 months later, I get a reward for that work. That's nice, but I've long ago abandoned that behavior, it's not necessarily reinforcing anything other than perhaps my cynicism. Or if the first change that actually earned the reward, if I didn't see a recognition of it quickly, I may have switched that behavior to something else and then something again. And eventually, by the time I get reward, I'm not sure which of those changes actually earn the reward, because I made 10 changes over time. It may have been the first or the second that earned the reward, but I don't know that because the reward was given so late. So which behavior am I going to continue doing? I'm not sure. I might choose one that I think the reward was related to, but I might have chosen the wrong one, and I'm not reinforcing the behaviors that are needed. So again, the rewards must be given in a timely fashion. So these are 4 tips for choosing the right rewards. Here's 4 tips for actually delivering the reward successfully. So once we've chosen the reward, we have to give it to somebody in a way that maximizes the benefits that we receive from presenting that reward. First, we have to agree with the recognition process. So for example, the giver of the reward must agree with the process overall. Say, for example, somebody is being, so we've chosen a reward. It's a plaque that we're giving to somebody, and we think that plaque would be appropriate to the kind of behavior that was done. It's suitable for the accomplishment. We're going to give it in a timely manner, and on the plaque, it's going to specifically say what the reward is tied to, so we know we're getting all of those 4 benefits for choosing the right reward. The next thing now, when we give that reward, say it's given up on stage in front of 5,000 employees at some big divisional meeting, and we present it up on stage. Well, if the manager presenting this is a fear of public speaking or a fear of being out in front of such a large crowd, I may not agree with the recognition process, and so I may not be giving it an effective way. The messages might not come across properly. The employee might not want to be centered out in front of all their peers. So the recognition process may actually make the employee feel uncomfortable, not comfortable with the process. So we must agree with the recognition process. We also have to agree that the recipient actually deserves the recognition. If somebody is flagged for a reward and the presenter of the award thinks the person doesn't deserve it, they've been told to present this reward, it's going to come across as insincere. As I said earlier, people are going to pick up on that. They'll pick up on the cynical nature of it, and it won't drive home the changes or the behaviors that you're looking for. We have to agree with the recognition, the method of recognition. So the recognition process is about how do we choose people for the reward? Are the right people being rewarded, or is there favoritism? The method of recognition is it public or private? Do I just drop by somebody's desk and drop it off and have a quick chat? Or do we call them formally into the president's office to have a discussion and honor them with the reward? Or do we do this in front of a group of people? We have to look at the method of recognition as well. And lastly, everybody needs to be comfortable giving and receiving the recognition under those circumstances. So if we can think about these particular things, this would be particularly helpful to think about the recognition process, whether the person deserves it, the way that we're going to recognize, and whether we're comfortable with that. Now, team rewards and individual rewards drive different kinds of behaviors. And I've developed this model to help us think about that. So on the y-axis, I've differentiated individual rewards and team rewards. But on the x-axis, I've also got 2 different categories of rewards. There's something called competitive rewards. A competitive reward is where there is a winner or multiple winners. There are winners and there are losers. People get the reward and people are not going to get the reward, and there's some kind of competition between them to see who makes it. So we'll say our top 3 salespeople will get a trip for 2 to Hawaii this year, or our best customer service reps with the greatest number of positive feedback responses in our feedback forms, they're going to get an extra bonus, or they're going to get employee of the month on the wall or something like that. But those who don't get the reward, that's a competitive reward when there's a specific number of winners and losers. Hurdle-based rewards are ones that potentially everybody could get. if they meet a certain criterion. So if they can pass that hurdle, if they can exceed that hurdle, then they get the reward. So this might be, for example, a perfect attendance reward, where if you have no absences in the quarter, then everybody gets who has no absences in the quarter due to illness or lates or whatever, they'll get tickets to the movies or something like that. That's a reward potentially everybody could earn. Now, not everybody will necessarily pass the hurdle, but they could if they tried hard enough, if they wanted to. It's an award that's available to everybody if they actually do it. So competitive, or where there's winners, it's a competitive, and hurdle-based is something that anybody can earn if they try hard enough. So if we look at the intersection of the X and Y axes, we see some interesting things. So we have individual competitive rewards. I call these gladiator rewards. These are where people duke it out and the winner gets a prize. So the top salesperson of the year or employee of the month. These are examples of gladiator rewards. How they motivate the people that are eligible for this reward is interesting. Individual competitive rewards the gladiator rewards tend to motivate your top people to higher performance. So the people that are your best, who are in the running for this, the top 2 or 3 or 5 people who are competing amongst each other to see who will be the best, it will spur them on to higher levels of performance so they can outdo their peers. It does in no way motivate the rest of the organization. So the people at the bottom end of your performance scale will not feel motivated because they know they have no chance of ever getting that reward. So it does not spur them on. So we use gladiator rewards when you're looking to amp up the performance of your top people just a bit more. So if you're, for example, very close to meeting some target or goal, and you just need an extra little bit of push to push you over, it's going to take a long time to push the average employee up to make a difference. But you know your top people, if they just did a bit better, will meet our target, then a gladiator reward would be appropriate to push those people further. So that's an example of an individual competitive reward. A team competitive reward is a bit different. So this is the us versus them rewards. The idea that there's our team versus other teams. We're going to have to compete. So you might do this, for example, between locations. We might say our London office is competing against our Toronto office to see who is going to have a greater level of productivity next month, or who will be able to complete their processing the fastest. An us versus them rewards is often done in manufacturing plants with shifts competing against each other for productivity, or plants competing to see who has the best safety record. So us versus them. What kind of behavior does this drive? Well, it's competitive. There are winners and losers, but what you'll find is it brings together team bonding. So even teams at lower levels of performance are going to bond together better as a group to help pull themselves up into that level of competition. So yes, there are still winners and losers. Your better teams are going to be pushed to higher levels of performance. So the teams at the bottom, the poorest performing office or the poorest performing manufacturing facility might not feel very motivated because they know there's no chance to win. But there will be some teaming going on, not very much. But it'll take your top locations, your top teams, and spur them onto higher levels of productivity, like the gladiator rewards, but it has the extra benefit of bringing the team together, bonding them as a group. The teams will help each other and transfer knowledge and support within the group, within the team, to help that team beat the other teams. You'll get mentoring and knowledge transfer and all kinds of lovely stuff coming out of those us versus them rewards. But as I said, still, because it is a competitive reward, groups that are at the bottom of the performance scale probably won't change their performance very much. So let's look at hurdle-based rewards. Hurdle-based rewards are different from competitive rewards because in this case, everybody can achieve the goal. So an individual hurdle-based reward might be something like the honor roll in school, right? Where everybody who gets above an 80 average, gets on the honor roll, and maybe they get, an extra certificate or something upon graduation. We can do this, as I said, with perfect attendance records in companies, or we can do this with every employee who gets their learning plan submitted before the July 31st deadline, gets an entry into a competition to win some kind of prize, right? So everybody can get a ballot for that contest. Everybody gets or free tickets or a free muffin or something like that, coupon. And everybody who gets above that threshold earns the reward. It's still individual. It still affects the performance of individuals. But because everybody can earn it, there's no competition necessarily. The first person across the finish line doesn't win and everybody else loses. Even though they've crossed that finish line, they've done their work, they've done what they needed to do to earn that reward. They may still turn and help and mentor others and help them meet the minimum criteria to earn the reward as well. So honor roll rewards tend to support team building at a small level. It's sort of at groups of individuals helping each other out. So there may be somebody who will cross-train or mentor or do some knowledge transfer to others so that they can help learn the reward. This skills transfer and networking and stuff that happens through these honor roll rewards can be helpful in solving some challenges within an organization. And then we have team hurdle-based rewards. So this is where all the teams compete, but the ones who make a particular number get the reward. So one example that was done not too long ago in an auto manufacturing company was the manufacturing sites or the plants that had an error-free record. So no accidents, sorry, not an error-free, an accident-free record, no accidents or workplace injuries in 6 months. Everybody on that organization gets a day off. So when they close down the plant in the summer for refitting or whatever, they're going to keep that plant closed one extra day, but people get a day off with pay for having such a clean safety record. So they'll just extend that plant closure by 1 day, or they'll give people pay for one of the days when the plant would have been closed anyway. So this is a cooperative teaming reward. So what happens is within that team, it's naturally a team building approach because the whole team has to work together to earn the reward. So there's lots of knowledge transfer and sharing and mentoring and team problem solving to try and help that group achieve the objective. But if one team achieves it, if one plant achieved the 6-month goal, there's nothing taken away from them if other plants or other teams also achieve the goal. So there may be tips shared, best practices from one plant to another, or they may send one of their safety experts from one plant to help another struggling plant, make changes so they can also achieve the objective. So it encourages team building within the group, but also team building between groups, helping the different groups cooperate together. So when we design a reward program, we need to think about what business challenges are we trying to solve in terms of culture within the organization, the level of teaming. Do we need competition? Do we need just hurdle-based rewards? You're probably going to find for different situations, you're going to need a blend of different types of rewards to drive the behaviors that you need as an overall organization. So it's probably a blend of 2, 3, or 4 of these different approaches that will work their way into your rewards program design. So I want you to be open-minded to think about the different behaviors that these programs, these approaches drive, and make sure that you're choosing the right kind of reward in terms of its goal for the challenges you're facing. I guess lastly, the last thing I want to talk about now that we've talked about how to choose the right reward, make sure you're rewarding the right people in the right way, and you've got the right mix of rewards, is what are these different types of inexpensive or low-cost rewards that we can give? And I find they fall into 8 categories. There's 8 different categories of inexpensive rewards. And let's take a brief look at each of these, and I'll give you a few examples as we go through. The first is to find different ways of saying thank you. And this could be free. Often this does not require any particular expenditure, but it's just being thoughtful. So this could be as simple as going over to somebody's desk patting them on the back, shaking their hand and saying, you know what, we really appreciate what you did last month. That was incredible. That made a huge difference. Please keep up the good work. So that could be free. You could amp that up a bit and do it in front of a department or a division, but be careful. The person might feel embarrassed being recognized publicly. So you need to understand if that will further motivate the person because now they feel like they're being recognized by the entire group, or if it will demotivate them because now they've been centered out in front of all their peers for something, and that may embarrass them. It may actually demotivate them to say, I'll never do that again if they're going to reward me in front of the whole group and embarrass me like that. So you need ways of saying thank you, but you got to consider who the individual is. Or for free, you could make it even better. When I was at IBM one time, one of my employees did something really, really well who was working for me. I could have just said thank you to them, but I thought I could make this even better. I called the office of the president, of the general manager of IBM Canada, and I said, I'm just wondering if we could find 2 minutes on this person's schedule to call an employee and recognize them for something really good that they did. And the executive assistant said, tell me about it. I explained what the person accomplished. I said, it's just going to take 2 minutes, just a quick phone call. Even if the person's not there, just leave them a voicemail. And what happened was the person was sitting at their desk, and all of a sudden the phone rings. They pick it up. The person announces themselves as the president of IBM Canada, and he says, I've heard through the grapevine, and this is where you have to tie it to the accomplishment, that you changed the processing system that you were using to process those customer invoices, and it made a tremendous difference last month. We were able to get out the invoices faster, which improves the cash flow of the company. And I just wanted to thank you for that level of innovation and the hard work that went into that, because you made a positive difference for the organization as a whole. And I just want to let you know that even at my level, I'm hearing about the good stuff you're doing. Thank you so much. A simple phone call like that from somebody so high up can be extremely motivating and rewarding for that individual, because they would be wondering how somebody so high up would even hear about this. To know that their accomplishments are recognized in those lofty levels might be tremendously rewarding for that individual. And when they tell their peers that they got a call from the president, that can also motivate the peers as well. So there's different ways of saying thank you. I'll give you another example that was low cost, or in fact, in this case, it was even almost free. A manager in a company had 3 employees who were working really hard for him, but 2 of them were not achieving the objectives they were. One of them overcame significant challenges and significant resistance and was able to be successful. And the manager thought, I need to recognize that person's extra contribution, because that may affect the other 2 employees if they see the behaviors that worked and the fact that we're recognizing it. They may mimic those successful behaviors. So the manager pulled aside the employee in front of a little departmental meeting. There was only 10 people or so seated around a conference table. The manager pulled the employee aside at the end of the meeting and said, hey, everybody, I'd like to just make a quick announcement. And this employee standing beside the manager, not knowing what's going on. The manager hands the employee a magazine. It was an old magazine. There was even a rip in the cover. And he handed it to the employee and said a few words that brought tear to the employee's eyes. Now, how could this do so? The manager actually took the time in the presentation to acknowledge some personal details about the employee to show that they cared. The manager said, hey, Bob has done a tremendous job last month, helping us reform the new policy and making sure it's working. I know some of you are still struggling with it, but Bob tried some new innovative approaches and it really, really worked out well. And, I was thinking I needed to do something to recognize Bob. And I know that Bob had bought an old car, and he's been trying to fix it up for a long time. He's been searching junkyards and online trying to find, the missing pieces he needs to restore this old car. And I know he's been making some progress. And in case you ever wonder, it was a 1950s Cadillac that he's working on, and he's making great progress, but he's still missing some pieces, and he still hasn't quite got it finished yet. But I was at a garage sale, and I found the original brochure that was published by GM announcing this new Cadillac in the 50s, and it was the same one that he was working on. And I thought he'd really like this brochure. It talks all about the new car and all the features. A little piece of memorabilia from that era. Cost me like 10 cents at the garage sale. but I picked it up, and Bob, I would like to present it to you as to thank you for all the great work that you've been doing, and I thought you'd really like this. Now, it was a 10-cent magazine, got it of a bin at a garage sale, but to Bob, this was priceless. This was, not only the fact that it's tied to some specific hobby or something going on in his personal life, but even for the manager to remember the person's hobbies and to take that into consideration outside of the work environment was really touching for Bob and made Bob feel really special. And the other employees were recognizing this and were likely motivated not only by the fact that there was some recognition of what Bob did, but also that the person took such a personal interest and tried to personalize the gift for Bob. So there's ways of saying thank you that might be very appropriate and not necessarily costly, that can drive employee changes. Another common category is food and drink. We can give out, buy a cup of coffee and bring it over to the person who, moved your application to the top of the heap because you begged so nicely, and they prioritized yours higher. The next day, you bring them a cup of coffee and thank them for prioritizing your work higher on the list. That works really well, with some individuals, and it can be as simple as a cup of coffee or a donut, or you can bake a batch of cookies and bring them in. It doesn't have to cost you much. It's the fact that you've done this might be nice, especially if it's the person's favorite. If the person really loves chocolate chip cookies and you baked a batch the night before with your kids, and then you brought them in and say, I know you really like chocolate chip cookies. I just wanted to thank you for what you did for me yesterday, and I just thought I'd bring you a few cookies as a thank you. My kids and I made them. Just, please enjoy them. Not only have you tied it to the specific behavior, the level of, by personalizing it, you're removing some of that concern about, is it too big or too small? Because personalization goes a long way towards right sizing a reward. Even if it's a tiny reward, if it's personalized appropriately, it can really make a touching difference to the individual. Certificates are a common way of presenting rewards. And it could just be a certificate saying thank you for work well done, and present that out. It could get a little bit fancier. You could get the certificate signed by the boss. Or how about if you've done something really well, to improve client service, why don't you have a bunch of clients sign the certificate and recognize that individual for what they've done? I'm staring at one right now on my wall that a bunch of clients wanted to recognize the hard work that myself and my team did to help them overcome a particular business challenge. One of the people on the client side created the certificate, put it in internal mail, shuffled it around 5 or 6 offices, and had all the staff sign this certificate so they could present it to me as a thank you. That's really touching that someone would go through all that work. So here I am, that 20 years later, and this certificate is still framed on my wall because I'm touched that somebody went through all that effort to reward something in particular that I did. So sometimes certificates can be appropriate, thanking them. But again, tie them to the behavior and make sure the presentation technique is suitable, whether it's public or private, or, do you just mail somebody a certificate, or do you call them up in front of the organization as a whole? Let me share you something that happened recently. University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies, people can complete non-academic certificate programs to complete a certificate in business valuation, or complete a certificate in project management, or some other topic. And people would take several courses to complete the certificate program. It used to be that the school would just mail them their certificate when they're done. Recently, though, to echo what's going on in some other institutions, other academic institutions, they actually decided to have a certificate ceremony. And what they did was they actually held it in Convocation Hall, the big room where normal diplomas and degrees are handed out. This is where PhDs are hooded and they get their formal academic papers and everything else. It's the ceremonial hall where that is done. Well, that room is often unused, so they were able to easily book that room and hold the certificate granting ceremony. They had some important people up on stage. They called people up individually, called out what their accomplishment was, handed them the certificate. There was some handshaking and photographs taken, and it meant a lot to the individuals that they were presented these certificates that were I mean, it's just a piece of paper. They're cheap little certificates. But because it was presented in such a prestigious environment or prestigious way, it really meant a lot to be publicly recognized. People had their families there cheering and clapping when they were going up to be awarded these certificates. So that's, again, an inexpensive reward that can have a big impact. Another one is events and entertainment. We can give tickets to the movies. You know, those things go well. You can get cheaper. You can give out tickets to high school plays or community theater plays. Those are often inexpensive or free. There may be the ability to do something a little bit different. In my office one time, we had a bunch of employees who were doing really well in this department. The department had a challenge to hit by the end of the quarter, and they achieved their goal. So we had a food and drink event outside. We brought in a barbecue, and we had some barbecued hot dogs and hamburgers for them out at lunch. But I also provided some entertainment. We got a local garage band to come out and do a performance while these people were eating their lunch, provide some entertainment. It didn't cost much to get these guys out to play, but it really enlivened the event to have live music at the barbecue. So sometimes events and entertainment are inexpensive and can be meaningful to give people tickets. If somebody sacrificed a few evenings working late into the night to help you make a deadline, it might be appropriate to send tickets to the movies or restaurant certificates for food and drink and provide them, you know, and make it out to that person and their partner or spouse, saying, you know, that partner or spouse sacrificed some of that person's time. You know, they were taken away from them to do work. Now you'd like to give them back some of that time by giving them these coupons or certificates so they can have a special event or some special time together. Trophies are a popular alternative, and they don't have to be expensive. They can be goofy. I've taken a computer mouse, a dead computer mouse, sprayed it with gold spray paint, took a Sharpie and wrote on the top of the mouse the Golden Mouse Award and presented it to somebody, you know, tacked onto a little piece of wood. We stapled the cord with a stapler onto the piece of wood, and it said Golden Mouse Award, and I presented it to the customer service rep who did the best at the post-training test. So we trained them on a new system. There was a bit of a quiz at the end. The one with the highest mark on the quiz got the Golden Mouse Award. Now, obviously, we announced that somebody would be awarded in advance to build a little bit of competition, but it was kind of a fun, goofy award. We've also taken old CDs and written something on them and made a little plaque with a CD on it with some writing on it for somebody who's done something well with some software development work or testing work. Anything that we can create a little handmade, homemade trophy. Sometimes those are goofy and fun. Those may be an appropriate way of rewarding somebody for low or no cost. Another way is giftware and gift certificates. You can get somebody you know, a crystal bowl or a silver platter, or get them gift certificates to a store. Now you're starting to spend money, but there's things that you can get inexpensively that look nice. You know, there's options, and often by personalizing it and presenting it in a nice way, that will have a bit more meaning for somebody. So we had one that was kind of fun for a company. We bought a fancy mug, a fancy oversized coffee mug. It was kind of fancy in how it was presented. It had a little feet on the bottom to help hold it up, and it was kind of fun presentation. We called that the employee of the month coffee mug. That person got to use it for a month, and we, you know, washed it all out and presented it to the next employee the next month. So sometimes these little giftware things can be inexpensive and reusable. Time off. This is a category people often miss. We can give people time off. We say, hey, if you guys work late this evening to get us, you know, to get us done by our deadline tomorrow morning, I'll give you the rest of tomorrow off. That may be motivation for people to stay late and do work. Or we've had people that, you know, they've done tremendous amounts of extra overtime that they were paid for, but it was still very stressful on their personal lives to be contributing all that extra work. We've given, you know, a team an extra day off or a holiday. Now, sometimes time off can be challenging, right? Because the organization may not like people getting extra days off, or there may be union issues. So sometimes we can do time off in creative ways. We can say time off on a special assignment. So instead of doing your regular work, we're going to give you some special fun assignment that we would like you to do. So technically you're still working, but it's not at your desk or at the assembly line doing your regular work. So I can give you an example. There was an employee who was working in an operational side of a business. So they were working on day-to-day operations, very repetitive, mundane work, but they did some extra stuff that really helped the organization. So they sent them, they gave them a different activity for a day. They sent them off as a secret shopper to go to competitive operations. It was, in this case, it was a grocery store. Go to competitive operations, and we want you to go look at certain aspects of their customer service and how they're positioning their, they're in the marketplace. So this was a fun extra assignment for these people that they thought was fun. Another employee was working for a hotel chain, and the hotel chain was thinking of expanding into Barbados and buying a hotel or building a hotel down there. So they actually sent a couple of employees as a reward for 2 weeks in Barbados, but they'd spend 2 or 3 days in one hotel, then 2 or 3 days in another, and they move them between several hotels over those 2 or 3 weeks, just so they can comment. And they had a form to fill out for each hotel, observations, notes, how did they handle this, what did they do on check-in, were there any problems with room service. And so they were given instructions on what to do while they were at the hotel and forms to fill out. But this was kind of a reward, because it was an all expenses paid trip into Barbados for a couple weeks for this group of employees. And not their full time was not taken up with these secret shopper type events, but it still added value to the business and gave the employee some kind of innovative extra approach. Sometimes these time off things are needed for some employees who don't even normally take their vacation. We can force them to take time off as a reward. So if you have workaholics who normally don't take their full vacation allotment, you can send them on one of these special assignments as a way of making them break away from their regular stressful work environment and try something that's a lot less stressful for a little bit. That might be something that's useful. And lastly, the last category of inexpensive rewards that we have to be careful with are negative rewards. There are rewards that we can give not to recognize good behavior, but to recognize or make fun of inappropriate or poor behaviors. And this is one you have to be very careful with. It depends on the working relationship that you have with these team members. It may work or it may not, and you have to be very cautious. But one example of a negative reward, a team that whoever came last or late to the meeting, every time we have our weekly team meeting, whoever comes last, the latest person, has to wear a really ugly, goofy necktie for the rest of the meeting. So the last one in the door has to put on this goofy tie and wear it around their neck for the meeting. It was a slight way of gently mocking their lateness, and that actually improved behavior because nobody wanted to be the last one that was late after the meeting started. And after a couple weeks of this, people started showing up on time. Nobody wanted to wear the tie. So you can actually change behavior with negative rewards, but be very, very cautious about this because again, it can hurt things. It can slip over into bullying or other inappropriate behaviors. So you need to be very, very cautious with negative rewards. But sometimes gentle mockery, if I can call it that, might be an appropriate way of encouraging behavioral change. So those are the 8 categories of rewards. So we've talked about the ways of choosing the right award, the ways of ensuring that the reward is given effectively. We've talked about ensuring that you got the right leverage off that reward to inspire other employees. We talked about choosing the right categories of rewards, those competitive versus hurdle-based rewards and team and individual rewards, so we can have the right mix of rewards. And now I've given you 8 categories of inexpensive ways of rewarding to help you choose ways that are appropriate to drive behavior within your team or your organization as a whole. At this point, I'm just going to open us up for quick questions. There is a question window on the interface where you can type in your questions. If you can type your questions in that window, I will respond. While we're waiting for people to type in their questions, I do want to encourage you to look up on Amazon.com for that book, 101 Ways to Reward Employees, 101 Ways to Reward Team Members for $20 or less. 101 ways to reward team members for $20 or less. Amazon often has the book for sale under $20, so that may work out well for you. Any questions? I have one question, and this is from Barbara. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Okay, Barbara's asking about these negative rewards. She wants another example of one that might be appropriate. Her comment is she can't think of any more appropriate examples. So here's another one. We had the employee so we had a group of programmers who were writing software, and the idea is we want high quality software. We want to encourage the programmers to test their software thoroughly before they considered it done. And some people were not very good at testing their work and were sending code that barely worked over to the other team, the formal testing team, who would find all kinds of errors. So we wanted to reduce the errors before they go to the testing team. So what we said was at the end of every month, because we're using an agile approach, we're delivering software every month over to the testing team. At the end of every month, we would look at the defects that were found by the testers, and whichever developer had the most number of defects in their code that was found by the independent testers, in other words, the developer didn't catch those mistakes themselves, we would hang a rubber chicken from the ceiling over their cubicle for the next month until it's changed. So it didn't hurt the person, but it was mildly embarrassing. And the idea was this rubber chicken, nobody wants it again over their desk. So because there was some subtle, tongue-in-cheek, wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of teasing. So what happened was people would test their code more thoroughly, and the rubber chicken would move to somebody else's desk next month. And after a few months, we found the quality situation improved so much that we just got rid of the rubber chicken overall. We didn't need it because we'd solved the problem. So that's another example of a negative reward that might be appropriate in some environments. Again, it depends on the working relationship amongst the team and the management. If it's more formal or a more legalistic or stuffy relationship, you probably can't do this. If it's a more casual, friendly environment, there's lots of joking and teasing and fun going along anyway, then you can easily do these kinds of rewards. Any other questions? Please just type them into the question window. We are at the top. We're at our 1 hour mark now. We've completed the webinar. Any final questions, you can just email them to me, sales@procept.com, sales@procept.com. We'd love to answer your questions on this and many other topics. We run these webinars every month. Usually the first Thursday of each month, so we welcome you to attend. The next one is September 6th, and it's on success tips for new supervisors. So thank you for attending this call. We look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. The presenter on the next one will be Terry Kozlowski, and I'm really looking forward to that one myself. Have a great day. Bye for now.